So Paul Scholes, Tom Brady, um, and there was one other guy I had in my head, but I'm trying to think of people who retired and then came back. Ben,
uh, yeah, but sorry, you've sprung that on me a bit.
I have. However, it's View from the Hazards, episode 53. Only 2 years in between the 52nd and the 53rd.
I think 52 was a Christmas special as well, so
Yeah, it was. Well, it's exactly 2 years ago.
there you go.
How spooky is that? But we're back. Um, Quite why we're back is up for debate, really.
Well, I think we just kind of thought with the the level of interaction with the players and publications and stuff, with like Ben Gatenby doing such a good work with like the interviews and stuff and releasing some content, we just thought, has there ever been a bigger appetite for it?
I think content in real tennis is at an all-time high.
Interviews, highlights, Instagram, social media, and 2 years ago, I just don't think that was the case. So we are back by our popular demand. We'll see what the reception is like with this one. Ben, a lot's changed in 2 years. Give me one thing that's changed.
What has happened in the last 2 years? Well, your world ranking has
Yeah, I didn't even have one 2 years ago.
improved somewhat.
Yeah, I was nowhere near the world rankings in 2021. Really,
I wasn't even on the list.
And now you are
11.
11, so one outside the top 10. Well done. You're not the most improved player though. Ollie Pridmore takes that.
Yeah, as we were discussing just there. Has your world ranking gone from 4 to 4?
No, it's gone down 4 to 5.
Oh, it would have been good if it had gone from 4 to 4. Okay, so business as usual on that front.
Yeah, exactly. No change with me. We've got a new world champion. I work at a different club.
Yes, you do. Where do you work now, Ben?
Well, I work at Bristol.
That's where we are right now. We're recording from Bristol.
Most people would know that. So, yeah, new club, new haircut, new ranking for you,
Too right.
new world champion. The Tampa Tour started.
Oh, the temperature has started.
Two new Open winners, John Lumley and
New
Nick
Open
Howe.
winners, Bonnie.
Oh, it's
Been a
not.
big 2 years.
It's not true actually, because John won in 2021 when we did the last Christmas special. So one new Open winner.
That literally like just after he beat me in the British.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry to open that wound again.
Very good. That's why I'm excited.
But yeah, fundamentally, I think now felt like the right time to resurrect this. I think the podcast in its initial form was more of like a COVID thing, getting content out there when there wasn't a lot going on. And I felt like we sort of lost relevance slightly after 52 episodes because real tennis was just starting again as that first British Open happened.
Yeah, I think exactly. And we were like, let's when real tennis kind of reopens, let's see where it takes us. And but obviously something needed to happen to warrant us being like relevant, and then we just kind of didn't do it.
We discussed every single court in the world, every single shot with the cyborg, and I felt like there wasn't enough to talk about without sort of things happening in the game.
Yeah, just to keep going for going, like for the sake of keep going. Yeah,
That's why I felt like it was a nice place to leave it. But I feel like now we've got 2 years of content and new players. The game looked pretty different, I think, than 2 years ago. Certainly in terms of the new players coming through. So I felt like a good time to restart it, really.
And what's very interesting about that is I'm obviously not going to spoil anything just yet. But what is interesting about that, there is a lot of new stuff. And today we are not covering any of it.
It's true. It's going to be different.
For all you British viewers, I think I thought about this last night. When Top Gear lost its three main presenters, they basically had the same show but a slightly different format, and that is what is going to happen today. So
here's a fun fact for you, by the way.
Go on.
You know, the new Top Gear presenters being Freddie Flintoff.
Yeah, not anymore.
Well, Top Gear no more. Paddy McGuinness and Chris Harris.
Yeah.
Chris Harris is a member here.
Do you remember?
I promise you.
That is so cool. That is so cool.
Yeah,
good.
Born and bred.
Really?
Fun fact for you.
I love that. I love that. But yeah, no, we've got something slightly different today. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the uptake is like. And yeah,
This could set the precedent for this could set the format for the podcast moving forwards.
I'm actually really excited. I'm excited by today because there's just going to be a lot of shocks. People aren't really going to. They're going to open the podcast. I think before people sort of knew what to expect. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this on the cyborg. There's going to be a lot of like you press play, not sure what's going to come out.
Yeah, what shot are they going to talk about this time, or what's going to all of this. Whereas now it could be anything, and yeah. So basically, a lot has happened in the last 2 years, but we're gonna kind of stay away from that, and we've mentioned it.
Yeah.
And as always, this is unscripted, unedited, so I'm
Yeah.
sure we've forgotten everything.
That's okay. We've got some things written down. We'll keep it professional. But no, Ben, one final thing before we actually get to the main chunk of what we're going to talk about. What's been your favourite memory of the last 2 years? That's just my question for you.
Wow. Real tennis based?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've really put me on the spot there. I mean, I guess it would have to be an open doubles title for me,
Yeah, French
I guess.
in September. Yep, I like that. I like that.
I don't think I've really got anything else to shout home about. Um, what about you?
Just I think doing a few more of the opens. I think for me, US Pro, getting into the US Pro was like a career dream of mine, and got to do it this year. And yeah, just getting into that top 15 and getting an invite to the Pro Singles was like, this is all I've ever wanted. Heard so many good things about the tournament, and that was just an awesome 10 days.
Got to stay there now.
And we finished it in style, didn't we? Less that's said about that.
It was almost really good.
Yeah,
And I
no.
just waited for you to change the flight.
Nearly. It didn't quite happen. Right. Well, so what we're going to do now is our guest.
We're bringing a guest on.
Bring a guest on, and I'm not even going to say who it is.
We should probably just let everybody know that we've got this person waiting, and we're literally just going to call them here and now. So there's a chance they're like making a cup of tea
Yeah.
or having a wee and we might just actually not get them. So we're really hoping that this just works out.
And I hope that you can hear him well enough. I don't think we don't talk over him.
No, if
Speak up. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
we've got him. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. How are you guys?
Very good. For anybody who's listening to this, I wonder if you've picked up who it is yet. Our special guest for today is none other than Christopher William Chapman.
Yes, thanks for having me, guys.
How are you doing, mate?
West Cape Bridge in Melbourne, and they're right in 200 metres from the beach. And on kind of Christmas Day, people park in front of their carports and all kinds of things because there's lots of people heading down to the beach and genuinely enjoying the sunshine.
And then presumably head back home and throw a few shrimp on the barley.
It's a dirty stereotype.
Always good.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to catching up with you next week for a round of golf.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Look forward to seeing you and Darren on Saturday for a bit of a hit of golf.
Yeah, 6 a.m. land and then straight out for a bit of brekkie in the golf course. So that could be interesting. I'm packing like full golf gear, by the way. I'm not going in tennis whites. I'm bringing the lot.
Well, to be fair, that is the forecast. I think most of the week that you guys will be over from the UK and the US, and high 20s, early 30s. I think from what I looked at a few days ago.
Perfect.
So that's all you'll need: shorts and a t-shirt.
That's when I'm in peak performance. So first things first, mate. Before we get into the nitty gritty, let's just get a couple of things out of the way so you don't have to bring them up. Because I'm sure you're absolutely desperate to. Australia won the Cricket World Cup. Well done. Let's move on from that. England put up a really good fight in that. And something that I care far less about, but your AFL team did win the grand final this year.
They did. It was a pretty epic year, followed on from a very surprising year last year. We had a new coach and young players, and it was amazing. I took my 6-year-old son William to a handful of games this year, including 2 of the big finals in September, and that was he's just fallen in love with it this year. So that just kind of warms my heart as a big Aussie rules Collingwood fan.
I'm really disappointed that you actually mentioned that side of it, because I was just going to say you've already spoken about it for 20 seconds, which is too long, and then you said something which was like really heartwarming and family based, so I just had to let you go with it.
You did a good Instagram story where he like did a kick, right? He did like a kick from behind the line. That's the goal, isn't it?
So I think the week leading up to the grand final here is a week of school holidays. So I took a week off work because we need him looked after while school's on. School's off. And we were down the park every day kicking the footy. So posted something about if there's a late call up, he's ready to go, and he snaps the goal from behind the boundary line. He loves it.
And currently a free agent as well, not contracted to anyone, so
He's in the draft.
Doesn't work on that AFL, but exactly, in the draft.
Oh, mate.
one other thing, mate. Have you followed like in the last week? RT cards is back on the map.
I have seen them. I popped up, I think this morning when I looked at it, and you must have been a day or two ago.
Yeah. So basically, I suppose our first question to you is, how do you feel about your card?
To be honest, I other than noticing the song that Lewis, RT Cards, had chosen.
Parkway Drive, right?
Yes, correct. One of my favourites. It was one of their softer songs, but anyway, we'll get past that. To be honest, I didn't even look at it. Now that I've basically retired, I was surprised they even got a look in, but I guess I'm still in the rankings somewhere.
Well, let me just very quickly run you through it, because I've just popped up in front of me. So we've got Chris Chapman, Australian flag, pro, 86 out of 100 is your rating. I don't know. I think it all gets done on like an average of all your stats, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
So someone doesn't choose your like final number. Well, you would know from FIFA and stuff. So Chris Chapman, we've got an 86 forehand, an 87 backhand, 85 power, 85 volley, 89 retrieve, 87 targets. Now, if there was a prize for the most rounded player, that's got to be up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's consistent.
So your full spread is from 85 to 89. That's exactly what I said when I was told about mine, and I was like, okay, I've basically got no obvious weakness, which means I've obviously all of my training's been right, I've done it well.
Yeah. About the 80s, perfect.
Yeah, I managed to sneak a 90s stat. I'll take that.
90 back.
I'll take 92, mate. 92.
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate, I reckon.
Obviously, Schenkers, how about your card? Oh wait,
It's not out yet. It's not out yet.
We haven't gone down the list far enough to get to you yet.
Yeah, exactly. Give it a few weeks.
Yeah.
I'll be
Right, I'll be all right. But there we go. You just touched on it then. You're in semi-retirement. We must stress that you are not fully retired.
No, I basically retired from all international kind of travel and play. COVID was a big problem, big problem worldwide. But we were confined to our shores here in Australia for quite a while, and then
your restrictions were pretty harsh, right?
Yeah, obviously the restrictions themselves, there were long lockdowns and off work and stuff, big chunks of time. And it just kind of hit what felt like a bit of a bad time personally at my age and stuff, and just since getting back to it, the amount of travel and stuff, the kids are a bit older, and it's been a bit harder to travel away from them, and just other kind of on and off dealt with some different kind of mental health challenges and stuff, and it's just become less enjoyable to do the actual kind of travel and time away. And I probably underestimated that after living in London for so long and being based in Hampton Court. Didn't realise how much more difficult the travel from Australia to basically the Northern Hemisphere for all tournaments bar one was going to be, basically.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of not necessarily underestimate, but probably aren't aware, when you are, let's say in England, you've got the British Open, the French Open is obviously like negligible in terms of travel. Um, yeah, and like even going to America, it's like a 7 hour flight or something like that. Whereas I don't think people take into account like every single time you compete, it's 24 hours on the plane.
Yeah, it is, and the connections, planes, being delayed, cancelled, which I had a couple of times from down under. Just makes it a bit more challenging, particularly like it is a daunt, and as you're about to do it in a week or two's time, obviously, Ben and Shank, as you've done it before, but that kind of a 24-hour trip is you've got to kind of be prepared for it, and then to have to do it 2 weeks or 10 days later and head home, it just becomes a bit daunting, really. So
Well, you've got like the 2-3 day recovery when you get home.
All that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
so and ironically, it's the part of playing and stuff I really enjoyed was travelling away to a tournament and really for that 2 week period you're away at a tournament being effectively a full-time athlete rather than a kind of part-time athlete. I'm a big believer that you're a club pro kind of first and run the club and stuff, and then the playing side is a little bit more, kind of has to play a bit of a secondary role at times. So when you get that 2 weeks away, it's the part I really, really used to love. But now with a young family and it's just become very, very difficult for me personally to be away from that. Carly was hugely supportive of me to continue playing, but just started to kind of enjoy it less. And
Yeah, I know, yeah, like you say, the day-to-day stuff is obviously your bread and butter, and we're allowed to speak very freely in this environment. So yeah, obviously the day-to-day stuff is your bread and butter, but not necessarily the most desirable all the time. So like you say, when you do get the opportunity to go and compete, it's not necessarily a break from work, but like you say, you kind of go, oh, I can actually just fully dedicate myself to this and not have to worry about the stuff going on at home. And the moment you start to, you start to not look forward to it necessarily, which I've gone through in the past, and I should have taken a break and I just basically carried on going. But like at the moment,
guys, can you hear me? My phone's just cut out.
Oh yeah, we've got you.
We can hear you more.
I've got it on mute. Is that any good? Oh, that's all right. Well, we can hear you. Perfect. All right, we're back.
You have my earpods in, but they seem to have stopped working.
We can actually
That's
hear
all
you
right.
even better now, chappers. So I think it was meant to be. It was meant to be.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, basically just saying like about if like you say the most enjoyable bit is the tournaments, and then it starts to become a bit daunting because of that.
Travel factor, it's hard. Like I'm really looking forward. I've not been to Australia. Obviously, I was there in 2020 with Shankman for our eliminator.
Yep.
I've not played an Aussie Open for probably
Since 2018 or something, and I am like
Wow.
genuinely looking forward to playing in the Australian Open. But there is just that little bit in the back of your head which just goes, God, I've got 24 hours of travel before I get there, and like that is a daunting, daunting thought process.
It can be a 30-hour round trip from leaving home to arriving at the club or billet at the other end, and then vice versa. So,
Yeah.
it's even more than just the kind of 20-odd hours in the air and a bit of a layover somewhere in the Middle East or in Asia or something. But it's a long old stretch. So to do it every, since we've been back open from COVID, it's been every 6 to 8 weeks pretty much, and it's a 2 week trip and then back again. So
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just about to say, if somebody said to me, would you want to
Compete in Australia 4 times a year, I'd be like, no, not because I don't enjoy Australia, but it's just I wouldn't want to do that. So,
Not even for 100 grand prize pot.
well, it's interesting. Like, no one needs to ask you because you do it for a free racket. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So well, thanks for being so kind of open and honest about that. And obviously, internationally, you'll be sorely missed. We're not gonna do like a Chris Chapman obituary because obviously you're still playing.
Yeah, exactly. Very much a threat in that Aussie Open draw.
So we just thought because basically your kind of international retirement basically inspired us to get back behind the microphone.
That's the real reason. That's the real reason.
Because we were like, oh, wouldn't it be good to like interview Chappers because he's obviously not going to be around the tournament.
Seen as much. So basically, we've just been kind of drafting a load of questions, and we just want to get a bit gritty with you, if that's all right. So, very quickly, for like anybody who doesn't know, CWC turned pro. Well, obviously, had like a very successful squash background.
Yeah, playing a pretty high level here in Victoria and kind of starting to make a bit of a move in the Australian rankings in the kind of 2007 period, and just happened to coincide with being invited along to watch this kind of weird sport called Royal Tennis in Richmond near the MCG, basically.
The story you tell about that first time you watched that Aussie Open doubles final, you know the story I'm on about as well. It's a funny story. It is a funny story.
So for anybody who does or doesn't know, John Link, a member at the club in Melbourne, has sponsored various Australian Opens, maybe even a World Championship at some point the last time it was in Melbourne. He knew me and a few other youngsters who he helped basically fund for various squash tournaments and things, and invited me along to the 2007 Australian Open doubles final. So I'm pretty sure it was four of the top five players in the world. You had Rob and Rory from memory versus Nick Wood and Julian Snow. And as kind of sitting there in the mezzanine, I have to admit I genuinely thought it was the silliest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
I remember you've been at that Open.
Working with him by that stage.
Is that the Open where Rosa beat Nick in the semis like 5-5 and 5 or something?
I reckon that might have been the year after. I reckon that was 08. The 2007 was, I think Steve had beaten Rob in the singles final, but I don't know who he played with, but didn't make the doubles final. So it was also the first time I'd met Steve sitting next to him, blonde streaked hair. Having a bit of food at the buffet.
Skunk like.
On and play doubles with him a lot in the recent history. So,
sorry. Anyway, yeah, carry on.
The level I was playing at squash, I just couldn't understand. You know, I had Rob Fay, Ted Cochran, the president of the club, was telling me, you know, how good Rob was. He was dominating the game, and then just routinely misses a backhand volley, and I just couldn't quite understand how it was possible.
It's such a like squash thing.
But how do you make a racket there?
And so to kind of cut a long story short, John and through Ted invited me along. Several months later, it was about June or July, for a chat with the head pro, Frank Filippelli, and Ted himself, and then have an hour on court. And after hitting about 3 balls, I realised why Rob missed that routine backhand volley, and I thought it looked a bit silly. So, yeah, I pretty much fell in love with the game from the first, couple of hours I'd spent on court. I think I had a session with Frank, Rory, and maybe Kate as well, and they basically had offered me a job after my first hit, and I started 4 or 5 weeks later.
Wow,
as a trainee pro. So that was kind of how I got into it.
The one thing as well I'll say about that story, so John Link and Link Pumps, for about 5 years I thought Link Pumps, he sold shoes. I didn't realise it was like water pumps. I was like, oh, they actually need water pumps in Australia. So like, good business model, John.
Exactly.
They're vital in Australia.
Yeah. So that's how you started.
How long were you at Melbourne for?
So I was there tick over 2.5 years.
Wow.
Oh, it was about just over 2 years when a position opened up at the Hampton Court. Obviously, Penny Boy, you can help us fill in the blanks there.
Oh, God, that was me, wasn't it? I left.
Replace you?
Yeah, he replaced me. God.
Headed down south.
2010, I'm going to say. Yeah.
With a Paul Knox that not many people have seen in recent times, and headed down to Bordeaux.
He still lives just outside the Oratory, by the way. Yeah, I think he hit your ball or whatever. So I remember my first like interaction or knowledge of you was when I'd done a month's work, sorry, at Preston Hall to cover Ricardo and AJ, who had gone down to Melbourne for a month.
Yeah.
And they came back and they were like, yeah, met these people like James Gould and stuff. And they were like, I've got this guy who works there, Chris Chapman, really nice guy. He's going to be coming back over for the under 24s and stuff like that. So that was like the first time I ever met you was at Middlesex. I think I've still got a photo somewhere like on Facebook of like the four of us all wearing like really baggy jeans and
That was the style.
I know.
It was. Baggy jeans and
God, under 24s. That's 15 years ago.
I remember the first time I ever saw you play was at Manchester in the pro singles, and you were playing Durack in the Satellite. And I just remember one shot. You were right at the front of the court and like tried to finish it, and Durack did some unbelievable retrieval. And that is the one thing I remember about that match. That must have been like 2010. And like, I'd never really seen either of you play, but yeah, that was 13 years ago at Manchester.
Was that the year that you were running around as a kid with the program, getting everybody to sign autographs?
Yeah, I think you might have signed my program chapters.
Maybe at home. I've still got that 2010 pro singles.
fanboy shankers.
Still on the wall.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Right.
So, Hampton Court in 2010, and then you moved back to Melbourne. This is going to scare me now, because I feel like you only moved back to Melbourne a couple of years ago, but you're going to tell me something like 5 years.
It's been 4.5 years since
Whoa.
So, 2018.
Yeah, so late 2019. So
late
mid. We left in the July of 2019. Basically, my son. Well, yeah. So it's spent 9 years, pretty much to the day at Hampton Court, based under Nick Wood. Worked with Steph King and for a long time Josh Smith, who one of my best mates. So yeah, and then my son Will was born in 2017, and that was pretty much started the effort to try and get home to Australia. Yeah. Obviously, in such a small game, I had to kind of bide my time. I entertained the other two clubs in Hobart and kind of Ballarat if they were available, but realistically Melbourne was the only place that I wanted to be, so we kind of had to wait, and it took about 2 years to kind of for a position to come available, and we moved back just a few days after my son William turned 2, so all of a sudden he's 6.5.
So was that before? Was that just before? Did you manage to get him back for free then, or did you have to pay for a seat?
No, it was like it would have been a toddler's seat. So yeah, it was like it's still 2/3 of the price or whatever. So it ain't cheap.
Should have moved back like 6 months before, got him for free.
So,
Taking your chances, unemployed.
You could have moved back like a month before and just been like, well, I can afford to not work for a month because I don't have to pay for that plane ticket.
That's real. That's proper maths. That is. That's proper maths. So there we go. The rest is history, and still in Melbourne, still no doubt got a lot to offer. A few, 2 more open titles followed as pro in Melbourne?
Yes. So won the 2018 French Open while still based in Hampton Court, and then I've won the last 2 Aussie Opens that I've played in. I did miss one with a torn meniscus in my knee, so that was so I've won the 2020 and 2023 Aussie Opens.
There you go. Do you have more open titles than Frank now then?
Well, that's a good question.
I think you do. I think you do. You alpha him. You one up in there.
I might do. He might have 2 Aussies, and I've got French to add to that.
Well, you've got 3 more than us, mate. So
yeah, exactly. Infinite amounts more. But yeah, so we've got a few questions. Sort of like you say, gritty. I mean, it's just a word, but let's see how gritty it gets.
We just want to dive in, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so we'll ask something which is probably a fairly obvious question, and it should be noted for everybody that like Chappers does not know what's coming here. There is.
To say, give you a heads up.
No.
By the sounds of it, you wouldn't have.
No, it's unscripted always. What is your proudest moment in real tennis? We're going to put the caveat on that so far because it's not over. But what is your proudest
Okay,
moment in real tennis?
Yeah, to be honest, obviously winning a couple of Opens has been great, but I have to admit I've had quite a lot of injury kind of setbacks over my career. So last year's French Open, the 2022 French Open, I made the final, defeating John Lumley and Rob Fay in consecutive rounds 6 weeks after a surgery on my knee. So to be honest, that is one of the proudest things I've achieved.
You gave Lummers. I mean, I'd say this to his face. So obviously, it's not. People aren't going to go, "Oh my god!" Like, didn't you beat John 3-love as well?
Yeah, it was 3-love.
I did. Yeah, I can't remember the exact scoreline.
Like 4s and 3s, maybe a 5 in the last set.
5 or something. So, but I was, I ranked myself as a bit of an underdog for that match, considering what I was coming off, and he, started to really kind of, break into that top 2 or 3 players in the world. So
yeah, I mean, he's gone through the years massively, isn't he? In the last few years, So
and the reason it was probably was probably on par with the Opens, but May superseded is that because I had such a short time to get ready, I was doing rehab sessions at 4 a.m. in the morning at a 24-hour gym. From the moment my surgeon gave me the all clear, so I was basically kind of 6 days a week, pretty much in the gym by about 4:15 in the morning. On my, either on my way to work, or so that I could get home, help Carly with the kids, and then catch the train into work a little bit later. So, yeah, we only had one car at that point, so it was that was the only real time I could get the work in that I needed to get done.
It's these kind of revelations, which is why we do the podcast. I mean, I never do that. That's insane. That's insane.
Well, it's also quite difficult, right? Like, I've gone through, not through like,
injuries and stuff that you've gone through, but periods of time where I've just put myself geographically in a place where I can't really practice with anyone frequently, and obviously being at Hampton Court, as I know from working there, is a very good place. You've just got practice all the time, and I know exactly what you mean. Coming from a different angle, like turning up at a tournament thinking, I've never had it through injury, but turning up thinking, I basically don't know what's going to happen here, because I've not played. I don't know if I'm fit. I don't know if I'm practiced. I could be amazing. I could be horrible.
Yeah, and that's that French Open last year is that generally went in with no expectations, other than that I was still probably touch and go with kind of being that the knee being recovered enough and done the work. So yeah, generally went in with no expectations, and that was the body was pretty broken by the time I did have to play Canada in the final. But,
At least there's that reel with like 2 million views or whatever it is on Instagram.
Yeah.
That backhand's proper good in that rally, by the way. It looks so nice.
And then so that I've seen that on various just tennis apps. It still pops up every now and then, or somebody sends it to me. So that's as about as famous as we'll get as real tennis pros.
So to go good cop bad cop, that's your proudest moment. Any regrets?
Any regrets?
I know it's not going to be anything like, I know Chappers, and I know that he's not going to have left any stone unturned. Like, there's going to be, it's not like he's going to be like, I wish I could have practiced more or stuff like that. I know it's not going to be that.
Yeah, no, I think I've actually reflected on it recently since kind of announcing the time, and even just to, close family and friends and things a month or two ago, or a couple of months ago now, and before I kind of went public. But also my dad's been diagnosed with a bit of a terminal illness, so I've been kind of reflecting on some stuff, and I think I didn't leave any stone unturned. There's probably various things I could have done better, but I think I prided myself on trying to be the hardest worker, and I genuinely thought at times that I felt like I was. And I think I got that from my dad, even though he was not a sportsman. He was the hardest worker I've ever seen in terms of he was a carpenter, and I've never seen tradesmen work as hard as he did. And I saw it firsthand working at school holidays and days off school. That did my part of apprenticeship with him, and he was a hard worker. So I think I got my kind of work ethic from there.
Well, you've definitely been. I can, as somebody who's like not had a rivalry with you, but has competed like against you for the last 10 years. Everybody knows like that Chappers is like one of the hardest workers. He's not turning up like uncooked like I have in the past. But you know that like this guy's going to be on it.
There are times I've turned up, not quite as fit as I wanted. More so probably after Will came along. There was a couple of tournaments, but I still don't have any regrets on how I played or how tried to perform. So I've never. Although injuries have occurred in matches and things, I've never been one to blame an injury or a lack of preparation as why I didn't perform.
Well, I'll tell you what, then, what a lovely situation to be in. To be like, I basically nothing springs to mind. I don't have any obvious big regrets.
That's good.
You just touched on it there, and one of the more comical questions I've got, because obviously we can laugh about them now, is you touched on injuries. What I mean, I've seen you like absolutely rip your hamstring like off the bone in France. I've seen you run headfirst into a wall.
You may remember once I jogged your memory about that hamstring as well.
Go on.
So that was a French Open.
You were playing Steve, weren't you?
I was, and I played Steve. I can't remember what year, maybe 2011, 2012. So I was still pretty new to the like constant tournament play. And I played Steve, I reckon, over the course of 2 years, I reckon I must have played him in about 6 of 8 available kind of quarterfinals that I played in, or tournaments that I played in. And it was the first time I held a set point against him. It was in the third. I was 2 love down, but I actually held a set point, and I reached out for a ball in my forehand. And again, for those who may or may not know, I've always been quite flexible. On the squash court when I used to play, I was quite frequently doing the splits and bouncing back up and things. And it had obviously been a while since I'd done it, and pinged the hammy pretty badly while holding a set point against Steve, who probably would have been 2 in the world at that stage. Only for James Stout to run onto court with a lukewarm glass of salty water, and he thought I'd cramped, and he was like, get this into you, and you bounce right back up, and I can't remember who it was, but they were like, no, this is pretty serious.
Yeah, this is not cramp.
He just drank this salty glass of warm water. He was like, well, we better not let this go to waste. I'm on the floor in pain, and had a bit of a chuckle as Mr. Stout can often arise out of people.
That's absolutely brilliant. I didn't know that.
So is that your worst injury?
Yeah. So what's you've had a few bad ones.
No, that was probably the tamest of injuries that I had.
Nice.
What was your just because the question I've got written down here is what is the worst injury you've had? Because you've had a few nasty ones.
There were 2. One was a bit more dangerous than the other, but one was just pure bad luck in that 2012 British Open doubles semi-final.
Oh, mate, I forgot playing doubles with Boothie.
Yeah, sure. Playing doubles with Boothie. We're playing. I want to say it was Tim Chisholm and Bryn Sayers. I don't know whether that's right, but I'm definitely confident Tim was on court. I just can't remember who his partner was. I always think it's Bryn, but I'm not 100% sure. Third game of a double semi, Tanneray of, they've invited all the kids down as they do these days. I think it might have even been one of the first years they kind of did that. Signed autographs for the youngsters. Shankers, you were probably there, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe. Still got it.
And third game of the semi, and I go to get out of the way as I was covering the hazard galleries.
Mate, I remember it perfectly. I was upstairs.
I was about hazard second, put my hands on the floor, but stayed on my feet in a kind of crouching position, and it was really cold. The floor was a bit slippery because of how kind of cold and dry it was. left arm slipped from under me, my chest went forwards, and the shoulder popped straight out the top.
See, that's interesting you say that, because obviously that's what actually happened. From our perspective,
Yeah.
I remember it looked like the ball had kind of hit Mabel Tambo and gone round, and Moody was going to have to get something quite tough.
Yeah. All I heard was the Tassie Devil just scampering around behind me.
Yeah, and trust me, I've played with him. That's a scary place to be.
And it didn't look, from my perspective, that you'd gone to your hands and knees and your arm had slipped. It looked like you had just gone fully like chest to floor.
Yeah, no,
And then
that
like
wasn't the
Booty
plan.
hit the ball back, or he didn't, or something. And then like about 2 seconds went past, and I was like, Shabba hasn't got up.
Still there.
He's literally just still there.
And another kind of like side note to that is our late friend Jed Eden was doing. He was doing text commentary.
Oh, I remember
before we
that.
were streaming.
That was a
Before
belter.
we were streaming, and the IRTPA, either on Twitter or maybe via their website, were doing the match reporting. And he's upstairs tapping away, and he said something along the lines of "Chappie's down." And then 3 hours passed,
Oh no!
and no updates had been given. And
I can only imagine
my
your
mum back
mum.
home. My mum back home in Australia was just about having kittens, so. And I can't even remember. It probably took us a good, hour or two to contact mum, via text or whatever, to tell her I was in hospital and stuff. So yeah, so that was a bit of he got in a little bit of grief from Susie for that from memory.
I'm not surprised, and sorry, just because we're conscious of time.
Obviously,
You've had a rough one where you've had the knees. You mentioned you slipped at set point against Rob Fay in Boston and went headfirst into the wall. And like I said, you can't ever fault the guy for not trying to win every point.
but I guess the shoulder one is probably the bad one, because, as we know, like a dislocated
Joint is then receptive to kind of go again at any point. It weakens it for the rest of your life, doesn't it? So
Yeah, like it took me a while, because when you've got an arm injury like that, you realise how often you push off the wall or something while you're playing, and it took me a long time to get comfortable doing that. But yeah, the running into the wall in Boston and being sent to hospital with a suspected cracked skull was the most dangerous.
I tell you what,
So basically, you've gone full head injury, ripped a shoulder, ripped a hamstring, knee. So there's no, other than breaking an ankle, you've pretty much got the whole body covered.
Yeah.
The US.
Again, like talking about time, and there was an element of not wanting to completely break down and not be able to do anything, in 10, 20 years' time with the kids or anything. So.
I was going to say, like, the US medical bill would be enough to give me a heart attack.
I was just
That would
about to
probably
say.
be the worst one. Easy path to that one.
Somebody said to me that the hospital stay for several hours and an ambulance and an MRI or whatever I had would have been up around the 25 grand mark or something. So thankfully for a bit of travel insurance. So anybody who travels without travel insurance, I would think against it.
I will get some travel insurance for next week as soon as we finish this conversation.
But yeah, moving on. An interesting one. You've said you got no regrets, really. That's great. But if you could change any aspect of your game, what would it be and why? Perhaps to get to like the next level. Is there one aspect of your game which you wish was like a little bit better or different?
If you had a magic wand,
Yeah.
what would you go, this is going to change?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm pretty confident how I've hit the ball. Certain things would have been better, but I think having the speed and agility of Camden or even John Lumley would, to add to the rest of my game, would have that'd be in the magic wand, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. Yeah, because I mean, you're kind of like me in the sense that you're naturally, you're naturally quite stocky, like I am. You're not,
Definitely,
you're not like naturally super lean. Like I'm not exactly the same. So it's one of those things that I think people.
They look at Cam's so fast and Lummers is so fast. And like, yes, they are, of course.
They're built differently.
Exactly. Watching somebody like me and you be able to get around, and Rob, get around the court like almost as quick as those guys is impressive, because we're shifting like an extra 10 or 15 kilos.
Yeah, and because I knew, and I was working with a trainer, Gareth Shelbourne, and we prioritise the kind of strength and use that kind of natural kind of lower centre of gravity, and as my kind of way around the court, basically, use a bit more kind of power and strength in that aspect. Just kind of prioritised other things in the end. So yeah.
Right, we're running a bit low on time, so I'm gonna give you're allowed a 10-second pause to think of it or something. But we need from you now. Describe your game in 3 words only. And it's not allowed to be very bloody good.
Far out, mate.
Embrace the chaos.
Embrace the
Oh,
chaos.
I really like that. I really like that.
I thought you were going to say something like dynamic or something like that. No, embrace it.
Yeah, I know.
Nah,
Love a boast. Yeah.
love both.
Right, that is good. Chaffers, thank you very much. So those are our questions for you. Now this is going to be, it's a new aspect to View from the Hazard. So you're going to be the first person this happens to. So the next guests, they're going to sort of know the format. You don't have a clue. So what we thought was, we'd already done our version of the Real Tennis Cyborg. So we thought we would put together a new cyborg, but ask our guests to choose one aspect.
So rather than me and Shanks basically piecing it together, we're gonna take the opinion of everybody else. Every time we get a guest, we're gonna get them to pick one.
So for you, we've decided that you're going to choose the Real Tennis Cyborg's volley.
Who springs to mind? Who springs to mind immediately?
Give us your thoughts.
I've mentioned him quite a bit because we played a bit, but and I played a lot of doubles with him. Steve Vigona is frighteningly good on the volley, particularly obviously the attacking volley, but standing next to him so often and playing doubles, his volley was just awesome to watch close up, I thought.
It's interesting because I said to Shanks, because we were just brainstorming last night, and I said, I guarantee the first name that comes out of his mouth is Steve Vigona. And then I was like, and I would have put my house on that. So then we were like, so when he says that, we're going to try and drill down a bit more. Can you think of anyone? Because obviously, because what we try to do with things like this, right, is there may be somebody who is like exceptionally good, like their volley might stand out from like the rest of their game or something, right? So I don't know, you could take like a Will Flynn
And say his force is a serious, like,
it's a serious piece of kit anyway, but it's an especially like bigger piece of kit because of his current level, and that's obviously like miles ahead, or that's streets ahead of his current level.
I know where you're going there. Yeah,
Steve Vigona is obviously, and I've played, I've won 2 majors with Steve, thankfully, and it's obviously like an insane volley. But can you think of anyone else? I mean, we're happy to plant seeds in your head, but we'd like you to come up with an answer. Anyone past or present? I mean, Boothie's pretty handy in the air, but
I was actually just about to go with Kieran. Obviously, I still hit a lot with Kieran, being based in Melbourne, and his volley, particularly kind of defence of the main wall. I'm always so impressed at how cleanly he can hit that ball, and I'm sure he hopefully won't mind me saying and this is probably the pot calling the kettle black, but with a rather large swing, he's always quite impressive. So
don't tell me, because I've got to play him next week. Don't tell me.
I know.
I just don't hit main walls at it.
I mean, I guess if you would still pick Steve on that basis, just because of the consistency factor.
I think so. Just I think just having Stuart so close so often and watching him defend as well as attack. If I was playing doubles with somebody where obviously you volley a lot, I would always quite fancy having Steve standing next to me, helping me protect that dead on.
I've got a name for you. I don't know if Shanks has got anyone in mind.
Probably got the same one.
I'm going to throw someone at you and just gauge your reaction.
Okay.
Brett Richardson.
Wow.
I've never watched him play. He's quality, right?
So love Brett, and he did some amazing things. And the amazing thing about him, his doubles play as that net player, attack when you can, was just astonishing.
Relentless, I would say.
Yeah, and so, like, to put it in context, if he was playing with a Kieran, or originally it was Mike Happel, you know, he was effectively the equivalent of probably a +6 to +10 at his absolute best. But if he was to play doubles from the back of the court, he was probably a 15.
Wow.
Well, but here's the thing. What we're after
So
here.
because he just volleyed so often, it was just unbelievable, and just such quick reflexes.
Please do remember with the Cyborg, they don't have to be around a player. They only need
to never miss volleys. That's
the only thing.
Yeah,
That's the
well,
only thing you're creating.
I mean, I do remember playing with Steve. One of the first times Steve and I played Brett, and I'm assuming it was Kieran, but again, I'm not 100% sure on that. Kieran missed or whoever it was, missed a main wall up over last gallery. Steve, customary, steps up and just looks to leather this thing, and smashes the racket out of Brett's hand at about his right kind of foot. And Steve's pretty pumped. He's like, he won't do that again. And then we looked back down the court, and Brett genuinely looked disappointed that he'd missed the ball, let alone the racket being out of his hand. And only for about the next time did Steve hit the ball, and he just deflected this thing back into a gallery. And I'm sure it took Steve by surprise a little bit. But yeah, so for someone who just played the volley, there aren't too many that have done what he did, particularly as he was not even a part-time player. He played the Australian Open and the RMCC Club Doubles. That was like it for the year. So,
Well, here's a question then, because we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
You have seen Steve Lagona playing Brett Richardson on the court in doubles.
yeah.
Who won that battle?
For the volley alone, as much as he won't like me saying it, you probably have to lean towards Brett.
That's interesting, because you said Lagona.
I was like, surely Brett Richardson's like an elite volley. I thought you'd say Brett Richardson.
I just chucked a name out there, and you've taken the bait.
I have taken the bait. Pretty easily talked into things.
Steve's going to listen. Steve's going to listen to this when he comes over from the Open. That's what you do, mate. Like, real tennis cards.
He's just travelled. Speaking of travel, he's just done the 30-odd hour journey from Chicago with two little ones.
Oh, mate, I know. He told me how much.
How do you feel at this stage? But,
He told me how much he spent as well. I had a horror. He's not going to be annoyed with you, mate. He's going to be absolutely livid with me for bringing Brett Richardson.
I know. We could have just seen, great answer, chappers. Yeah. We made it a bit harder. But anyway, so Steve Lagona, the first aspect of...
No, Brett Richardson.
Oh, so we actually going Brett Richardson? Seriously? Final answer?
yeah, that was the final answer for just
Volley only, Brett Richardson, part of the Cyborg. Brilliant. The modern day Gene Scott.
the modern day Gene.
Yeah, not that we ever saw him play. What a shame. So that is it. We're going to do that with all of our guests. But Chappers, you've been the first. Definitely not the last. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you in March for the Bathurst. But
Yes, it's going to be a good week.
I know, can't wait. But
Mate, thanks very much for giving us like an hour of time in the evening.
That's all right. It's only coming up at 11 p.m. and I'm heading to work at about 5:30 tomorrow morning. It's all good. Exactly.
is that Bundaberg ginger beer?
That is the same company.
Yeah.
My dog is named after
Your dog, right?
Bundaberg the rum.
Yeah, I know.
That's good, nice. But yeah, no, thank you so much, and best of luck in the Aussie Open, however that goes. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Chappers.
Mate, I'll catch you in a week. Thank you so much for
You
doing that.
will.
All right.
Pleasure. Thank
Speak
you,
soon.
gentlemen.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.
All right, see you guys.
Bye bye.
And there we go, guys. Episode 1. I know, what a legend for staying up and doing that.
I'll tell you what, a very good. If anybody wants to, have like a role model for like how to go about training and improving and taking it seriously, like they could do a lot worse than having a look at his Chris Chapman's career, his training methodology and practice.
I think the fact of the matter is he's going to be well remembered in real tennis as like one of the great modern era players. Won an Opens.
When he said he kind of liked to think of himself as like the hardest worker on occasion and stuff. They like no one was working harder than
Nobody was working hard. I mean, a few people might have been working as hard. But
Yeah.
no one was working harder.
No debate. In a tough era, definitely going to leave a great legacy. And not retired. Hasn't left the legacy.
He could just ping out the Aussie Open and could defend his Aussie Open title in 2 weeks.
This is it.
Those world rankings are going to be dangerous because when he's coming in unseeded in the Oz Open, that's not going to be a draw you're gonna want round 1. Benno, you got any thoughts about next episode? Keep it the same.
Well, it's just good to be back. It's nice to have guests. Like if we just there's two of us rambling about rubbish and forehands and how yeah exactly stuff like that. How bad the bounce is on certain courts. Like we've done that, so hopefully we can just be an exclusive. Maybe we could turn into like Michael Parkinson.
Yeah, I like Piers Morgan, life stories. But there we go. Guys, if you want to hear anything else on the podcast, any guests you want to hear from, any format changes, any questions, please drop us a message personally on the Instagram, comment on the YouTube video, because I think we're back. 2024 is our year, I think. The year of View from the Hazards again, the rebirth. But Ben, it's been fun today, and I think hopefully, fingers crossed, the audio sound is going to be all right. I think from the black line I can see on the screen, should be all right.
I think it'll be okay. Apologies, obviously, in advance if the line gets a bit bad when we've got chappers and stuff. We basically do the best we can. We don't have any high-tech kit, so
It's expensive stuff, but no. Well,
Until next time, I reckon, and excited for episode 54 already.